Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first half of Helpless to Hopeful. I'm Jen. I'm a holistic family consultant, and if you've been around here, you've probably already met me. But if not, I particularly like to work with non-traditional families, so queer and polyamorous and neurodivergent children or parents or both. And this workshop was born out of the election in the US last November because I kept getting texts like, it's 10 a.m. and I'm on my third drink. And I was like, okay, we can't just stay here for years. This is not gonna, but people didn't know what else to do. They didn't know how to get out of that, like, oh my God, I can't do this kind of place. So there's nothing about this workshop that is specific or exclusive to that kind of political situation. This is a process that can be helpful for any circumstance in which you're like, I'm just feeling stuck and I can't figure out what to do with that. So I'm going to encourage you real quick before we start diving into it. If you have the workbook that I posted in the group, that will be helpful. It's not required. I see Sophia's. If you want to look at it digitally and then write in a notebook, you can do that. I do encourage you to have something to write on, even if you don't have the workbook prompts. They're not strictly necessary because I'll say all of the things, but it can be helpful to write down some of these things so that then you can come back to them when you might not be in a headspace to remember them. And then the other thing that I'll encourage you to grab is if you don't already have something within hand's reach that feels nurturing, grab that. So that could be like a mug of something delicious, or a warm, fuzzy blanket, or a candle, or a pet, or anything that is going to feel, warm, cozy, nurturing. And there's going to be, it's great to have that with you the whole time, but there's going to be one part in particular where I really encourage you to connect with something that feels cozy and nurturing. So to start to dive in, oh, and the other thing that I really want to say up front here is that we're going to walk through all of these steps, not fast, but we're going to keep moving through them in order to fit them all in. But if you feel like you're getting stuck or like the pace is too fast for you, I want to encourage you to slow down and stay in wherever feels like you need longer, and or bring this to a healing story circle or reach out for more one-on-one support, because it may be for some people that some of these steps are harder or feel like they need more time than others. And also, if there is anything where the goal here is to create a container in which you can feel safe and connect with yourself and others. But if something doesn't feel safe in your body, please listen to yourself, because it will not help you to force yourself. It will not help anybody if you are forcing yourself. So, yeah, if something doesn't feel good to you, listen to that, stop, and you can still take in the words that I'm saying without participating in the activities. If that is what feels like your body is needing right now, you can always come back and revisit it in the recording, or, ask questions after. So please take care of yourself first and foremost as we go through this. So the first piece here is about validating what we're experiencing. So you can share this in the chat or write it down for yourself. But what are the fears, worries, anxieties that are coming up for you right now? And this could be like big world things that are clearly beyond your, personal ability to fix and deal with. Or this could be in your personal life, you know, I'm anxious about having the water turned off all day and like not being able to flush the toilets. Like that, it can be small things, or it can be, I'm worried about whether people I love are going to have all the rights that they need 4 years from now, right? So it can be any scale, any scale. The goal is to name those things for yourself so that they're not just rattling around, nameless and formless inside yourself. And then the next piece of this is that makes sense because, and If you are having trouble figuring out why it makes sense, then you can put that in the chat and I can help talk you through that. For example, um, it makes sense that I'm worried about people I love having the rights they need because people are actively trying to take those rights away. It's a real thing. I'm not imagining it. It makes sense that I'm worried about what if we have to flush the toilet a bunch of times today because the water is currently turned off. And, it could be really unpleasant to have a full toilet and not be able to flush it. It makes sense. It's not imagined. And that's what we're going for here, is to validate that whatever you're fearing, and even if it's something that is not actually come to pass yet, like I do not currently have a toilet I'm unable to flush. It's a fear that might happen, but it makes sense that I'm worried about it because if it did happen, it wouldn't be good. That's what we're going for, is really deeply validating and understanding that we don't have fears and anxieties out of nowhere. They come from places that make sense. We can connect with where the concern comes from, even if the thing we're worried about doesn't seem likely or doesn't make cognitive sense. So that's the validation that we're looking for. And also because sometimes, especially when it's something big that we don't personally control, like what happens on a world or country level, it can feel like naming it, acknowledging it, makes it feel real and makes it feel more helpless, because then we're seeing it and it's so big and we can't fix it personally ourselves, all by ourselves. But it's actually the first step toward figuring out if there is something we can do about it, is to acknowledge that it's there in the first place, or even to just acknowledge that it's like taking up some headspace that then you don't have for other things in life. So that's the first piece, is that validation and acknowledging what's there for you. And then the second piece of this is that we're going to start to connect with, okay, if you've listed multiple things, pick one to think about for today, maybe one that's smaller. So I'm going to pick that I'm thinking about my concern with the water being turned off at my house, not the existential threat to people that I love, because it's easier to connect with the smaller thing. But you can do the same process regardless of the scale of the concern. And then think, okay, when I think about that thing, what does it feel like in my body? And so if you have the workbook, it's like a Mad Libs. Sensation and body part are the blanks that you're filling in. I feel blank in my blank. So if you're not if you're not regularly in the habit of feeling these things in your body, sensations can be things like hot, cold, tight, loose, um, restricted, those kinds of words. So an adjective and then a body part. So for me, that worry feels like tightness around my ribs. And if you're not easily connecting with something in your body, a body sensation, I encourage you to connect with, what are you feeling right now as you think about the fear or anxiety that you're choosing to work with today? What are you feeling around your chest and ribs, your shoulders and your jaw and your hands? Those are the most common places that we hold feelings of stress or survival energies. So even if you're not quite sure what you were feeling like before you started thinking about this thing, you can write down what I'm feeling right now in my jaw is this. And then you can go back and compare it some other time when you're not thinking about an anxiety. And if you can't feel any of those things, you can also write that down. I feel nothing in my body part. Um, and if all of that feels overwhelming or too intense, you can think about what I feel in my toes. Go someplace else in your body that feels less overwhelming or less worrisome, and just connect with what the sensation is in that part of your body for the moment. So connecting with some kind of sensation somewhere in your body. And then the first thing that we're going to bring to that, so now we have a mental and a physical understanding of something that's going on, something that's coming up for you. And the first thing that we're going to connect with from that is nurture. So connecting with something that feels comforting and that feels like it's going to bring you just a little bit of a sense of like, okay, there's something not so bad in the world. So I'm going to give you a couple moments to just whatever you grabbed that was a nurturing thing at the beginning or whatever you can grab right now. And take a couple of breaths where you really connect with the feeling of being cozy and nurtured by whatever you brought with you for that. I encourage you to use your senses, so you can touch, and depending on what the object is, if you've got a blanket, you could touch more parts of your body than just your hands. If it's something that you can smell or taste, looking at it and just really connecting with, well, what does it feel like to offer yourself just a little bit of care and comfort in a place of feeling uneasy about something. And then we're going to start to bring our bodies in a little bit more and our breath. So I'm going to encourage you to curl up your body into a protective position. You can imagine that you're offering yourself protection about whatever thing, whatever worry or anxiety you're working with, that you're offering yourself a felt sense of protection and safety. So really curling in tight. I'm not going to curl quite as tight because then I'll be talking not toward the microphone. You won't be able to understand me, but curling yourself up really tight, curling up fists, really curling your arms against your body, really curling as tightly as you can, and really think about squeezing into that protective shape. Like really go into it as tightly as you can. And you might notice that it's hard to take a very deep breath because in this protective position, there is not a lot of room for your breath. And so we're going to start to connect with that sensation of the breath being restricted and compressed. And so as you breathe, start to notice, does it feel safe enough right now in this space, in this room, in my body? Does it feel safe enough that I could take just a slightly deeper breath and push myself out of that curled position just a tiny little bit with that breath? And so do that with a few breaths. See if it feels safe enough to take just a slightly deeper breath each time and slightly uncurl. And each time evaluating, does that feel safe? Am I safe enough to be in a slightly less protected position right now? And if the answer is no, then go back into your protective position and don't force it, because forcing yourself out of safety will not help you feel safer. And as you start to uncurl a little bit, noticing whether does it feel safe enough to let my shoulders drop? Does it feel safe enough to let my fists unclench? Really allowing that breath to lead, opening yourself up as it feels safe enough in the space that you're in. Really connecting with, is it safe right now in this moment, in this space? Is my body physically safe? So we're not trying to orient to like, is the world at large safe? We're not trying to orient to, are all of the people safe for me? Just, is my body physically safe in the space that I'm in right now? Is it safe enough that I don't need to be like protecting my vital organs right now? I can open my body up a little bit. So as you're reaching a more upright position again, I'm going to invite you to twist your body in one direction so that you can look behind you and really take your whole body as well as your eyes behind you and look down and up behind you, checking, is it safe behind you? Any threats behind you? And you can twist the other direction. And the same thing, take your whole body and your eyes and looking down and up behind you and checking, is it safe? And then continuing to take in the space that you're in. If you have a door or window, how would you exit? If you can look out your exit, is it safe where you can see right outside your exit? Could you leave if you needed to? If you have a window or a plant or a pet or anything alive that you can see, or anything that is part of the natural world that you can see, the sky, something like that, giving yourself a moment to take that in. You can connect with your feet, connect with the sensation of your feet touching something else. You can even press into each foot, really press your weight to really help you feel the solidity of your feet are touching something, really feeling that contact. If you feel an urge here to shake or yawn or something like that coming out of your body, allow that. You need to restrict that. And then when you feel ready, we'll bring that sense of connection to the space here and the other people who are here. And does it feel safe to look at those people? I'm going to unspotlight myself for a moment so that everybody can see each other a little bit more. Connection with ourselves and with other people is really vital to not feeling isolated and burnt out in the face of things that are big when we're dealing with big things that we would like to be different. Go back to spotlight here. All right, so as we've oriented to some safety, and if you have the workbook or if you just have a piece of paper, you're writing notes, can be helpful to write down a little list for yourself of for nurture, orient to safety, and then as we move into the next piece, which is movement, um, what are some things that feel nurturing to you? What are some things that you could grab if you're feeling, panicky or anxious or worried? What could you grab to introduce just a little bit of comfort in that moment? And then the orienting piece, what are some ways that you can check whether your body is safe right now? Whether you can check whether it's safe enough to connect. And then as we move into the movement piece, so now that we've oriented to being reasonably safe in the moment where you are, um, our bodies don't know the difference between being activated into a fight, flight, or freeze state by a political event that's happening 1,000 miles away, or a bear that's in your kitchen. Our bodies don't know the difference. So our bodies activate to run away from or fight the bear when we are looking at something on Facebook or reading a news article or something like that. And there's nothing to fight and there's nothing to physically run away from. And that's part of why we get stuck. It's because our bodies are trying to fight a bear that isn't there in our space. So we still need to move that energy. So that's this piece like, okay, I've noticed that there is not, in fact, a bear in my kitchen right now, but my body still wants to fight that bear. So what can I do with that? That's the movement piece. So right now, sitting, and especially if you tend to go into freeze and movement feels hard to access, very small movements are a good place to start. So this could be like tapping your hands on something or moving your feet quickly, like you're running, even sitting down to do that, or jumping, or I'm sitting on an exercise ball, so bouncing up and down. You could also tap on yourself. That can feel nice. Your temples can feel nice. On the top of your head can feel nice. Yeah, Sophia's rocking back and forth. So it doesn't have to be big movements. Uh, Sometimes big movements feel good, especially if you tend to go towards a fight or flight response more than a freeze response. So, going for a run, whacking a pillow, and so when you, as you write down ideas, both things, ways that you can move that don't require any particular location or large amount of time, like the things that we're all doing right now, as we're, I see Rebecca stretching. So write down some of those. What kinds of those kinds of movements feel good in your body? And then it can also be helpful, especially if it feels like some larger movements could be helpful, write down those as well. So for me, that would be things like going for a hike or climbing. I can't do those necessarily at every moment when I might feel stressed. So those can't be my only options, but they are important tools. So both matter. Both the things, okay, right now I can like bounce up and down on this ball. And later today, I can go do a thing that involves a bigger, longer piece of time to move some of that energy. So thinking about also in this, sometimes fight especially, but both fight and flight can be scary for us if we don't have good examples of them being safe. So if our experience is like somebody gets mad and goes into a fight response and they took it out on you as a child, then it can feel like getting angry and having a fight response is dangerous. It's going to hurt you or it's going to hurt someone you care about. And that's one of the reasons that we then sometimes like bottle that up and feel that tightness and we get stuck. And that's how we end up in this like, I'm stuck and I can't move and I don't know what to do because if I do anything, I'm going to hurt somebody. We don't want that. Of course, we don't want that. So it's helpful to think when you're not in that state, how could I direct this energy so that it doesn't hurt anybody? So with a fight response, things like hitting a pillow on a bed can be really helpful, or yelling can be helpful, or this might be the time to take up martial arts if you have a lot of fight response that needs to come out. So yeah, thinking about like, it's a good thing. It's information. It's your body telling you that it's perceiving a bear. So there is something that feels threatening that your body wants to fight. Your body's not okay with. And that's a good thing. That means your body is engaged and cares and wants to make a change. And we just need to direct that in a way that doesn't hurt people. And once we've dealt with the physical response, like we're trying to fight a bear, then the impulse that's behind that is what can drive action that can actually do something about a 21st century bear that we can't actually punch in the nose. So the goal here, and this is the place where we're going to stop for today and then go into the like, what do you do with that impulse next week? So the goal here is to discharge that energy, not so that we go back to like calm and serene and I don't care what's happening in the world, but discharge that energy so that then our brains can come back online and say, okay, I'm fired up. What can I do with that? And that's the piece that we're going to do next week is what can you do with that? And how can you decide how to direct that so that it feels meaningful and impactful and not so overwhelming that you burn out? So we will come back next week. And if you're watching this later and you have questions, obviously reach out. We're happy to answer those. And like between now and next week, because I'm used to doing this as 1 hour. So between now and next week, give yourself a little practice with those pieces, with tuning into your body and with giving yourself some space to move and play with how does that feel afterwards.
Thank you so much, Jen. This has been great. Ah, okay. I'm ready for my day. And I am really looking forward to next week. So thank you so much for sharing this with us today. And thank you for being here, everybody.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right. See you later.
Bye.